was escaping or something. I need to have sit up here and just smile.
Good evening, and thank you for your attendance to the May 15th, 2024 Regular Board of Commissioners meeting. I am Vice Chair Jonathan Craddock in the absence of Chairman Dr. Riddick, who is excused from this evening. I have present tonight Emily Truman, Linda Hoffler, Brian Rantry, and County Manager Scott Sowell. Attorney Pitt Godwin and Clerk to the Board is also excused. County Manager will be taking minutes of this meeting. Commissioner Rantry will open us with the prayer and pledge of allegiance to the flag this evening.
Let us pray. Dear Lord, we thank you, Lord, for once again us gathering together to govern this county. Yes. We ask you, Lord, for direction. We ask you for wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. We acknowledge you in everything that we do. Lord, we ask that we do everything for the betterment of the citizens of Gates County. And we thank you and we give you praise. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Rantry. Action requested, motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All right, properly moved and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Consent agenda. Action requested, motion to approve consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Properly motion and second. All in favor by saying aye.
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 All opposed say nay. Ayes have it. All right, we're moving to staff introduction. HR Director Warren Perry.
Good evening, Commissioners and Mr. Sauer. Tonight I have with me two interns that will be here this summer. Madison Respis, she comes to us from Martin County. She'll be working in the Extension Office with Helen Ewer. The funding for her internship came through Cooperative Extension and North Carolina A&T. Thank you, Mr. Rantry.
Yes.
And she's currently a junior majoring in Ag Ed, or Agriculture Education, at the University of Mount Olive. Secondly, I have Javon Butler. He's a native of Gates County, graduated Gates County High School, and his internship is funded through the Golden Leaf Foundation. Javon is currently a junior at North Carolina Central University, where he majors in engineering and physics. And he'll be working in the county for us this summer with inspections, planning, building and grounds, public utilities, among a few other things. But I'd like you to welcome them, and I think they have a few words to say.
Yeah, how you doing? I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to be here, and also that I'm looking forward to this experience and getting to know each one of you, if possible. And thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm very grateful and very excited to work here this summer. I'm definitely looking forward to learning new experiences as well.
Yes, thank you both.
Welcome aboard.
Yes.
Any public comments?
No, sir, no comments this evening.
Public comments. Okay. We're going to move on to reports and presentations. Mr. County Manager.
Thank you. This evening we are joined by Ms. Leanne Bagasala. She is with the firm of Malden and Jenkins, and her team has spent many, many hours with William Robertson and his staff preparing this year's financial statements. And with that, we'll turn it over to Leanne.
Okay. I'll give them a second to put up the PowerPoint. My name is Leanne Bagasala. I'm an audit director with Maldens and Jenkins, and we have been serving on Gates County Audit for a number of years. And I kind of wanted to go through the audit results with you. I'm going to go through the different opinions that you received. Oops. The different opinions you received, some required communication that I have to tell each commissioner, and then a couple of recommendations, and that at any time if you have questions, please feel free to stop me. So this first slide gives you an idea of who Maldens Jenkins is. We have been here as your auditor for a few years, but did want to make sure that you are aware we do have a Raleigh, North Carolina office now. And so a majority of your audit team was served out of North Carolina this year. Previously, we focused a lot of our efforts that came from Columbia, South Carolina. They love to travel, so it's not a big deal, but now you have folks that live here in North Carolina serving on your audit. So I served as the director. I was the one that ultimately signed your audit opinions. Tim Lyons, who has been previously your audit partner, served as your second partner, which means he does a quality control review. He makes sure I dot my I's and crosses my T's. And then Jennifer served as a senior associate along with several other staff members. Altogether, we did spend a significant amount of time on the county's audit this year. I think we're at over 500 hours completing the audit. So this next slide is your audit opinion. This is on page 1 of your financial statements. And this opinion reads that we consider the internal controls of the county for the purpose of expressing an opinion on Gates County's basic financial statements, but not for the purpose of expressing an opinion on the effectiveness of the county's internal controls. Our audit was performed in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles as well as government accounting standards. Our objective is to provide reasonable but not absolute assurance that the basic financial statements are free of material misstatement. We do want you to know that we did not audit the ABC board here in the county. That was audited by other auditors, so you will see in our opinion when we refer to their audit. But ultimately, the basic financial statements are the responsibility of the county's management. And in your audit opinion, you received an unmodified or a clean audit opinion. That's the highest level of assurance that we can provide, that your statements present fairly in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. But we do want you to know that our responsibility does not extend beyond that report or the fiscal year that we audited. And so just to remind everybody, we just finished the fiscal year 2023 audit, which is July 1st, 2022 through 6/30/2023. And we will soon be starting your fiscal year 2024 audit. This next slide does go through one of the findings that we had as part of our audit. So you did receive an unmodified opinion, but there was a material weakness identified. So when you're thinking about findings, we have different ways of reporting findings. So if you have a finding in your audit opinion, it could be either a significant deficiency or a material weakness. The difference between the two is based on the amount of the error. And so the error here in this finding was material to the financial statements, therefore it's a material weakness. So during the audit, we had material adjustments to the balances that were provided to us by finance, and this slide lists out the different adjustments that we did have. And I do want you to know that these were corrected as part of the audit, and management did respond within the financial statements that they agreed with the finding, and obviously they're going to work towards correcting that for the fiscal year 2024 audit. Does anyone have any questions specifically on the finding? All right, so one of the things that we have to do as part of submission of our audit to the Local Government Commission, the LGC, is we have to fill out their data input form. It takes various information from the financial statements, and it spits out metrics that they think that different entities should follow. And one of the first ones that comes up here as a performance indicator, all of these items that are on these slides are indicators that the commissioners actually have to respond within 60 days of me presenting to the Local Government Commission and say how you're going to fix these things going forward. So the first one is the water and sewer capital asset ratio. The expectation is it's 0.5 or greater, you're at 0.49. And you'll see how it's been going down every year. So that is an indicator that you should respond to when you are working on your LGC responses. And that'll be something that finance handles and then gives over to the commissioners to review. The next one is that your audit was late. And so you'll have to explain to the local government commission how you're going to make sure that you don't have any more late audits. And then the next two, one of them is that in your financial statements in note 3, which is on page 46 of your financial statements, there was a budget violation disclosed in the notes. And it basically says that the general fund went over budget for educational expenditures. So you spent more than you had budgeted, and this is something that is considered a statutory violation. Basically, and if you read in the footnotes, it basically says a budget amendment just needed to be processed. It was just something that wasn't processed timely, and so there is a over expenditure there. And then the last one basically says that material weakness was identified during the audit, so you do have to respond to, and that's the one that we just went over, you do have to respond to the local government commission about the county's plans to correct that material weakness. This is something that is just recent. Last couple of years, these performance indicators have come up. The next opinion that we're going to go on is page 109 of your financial statements. This is the Government Auditing Standards Report, or what a lot of people refer to the Yellow Book Report. In the financial report package, our report basically says that we tested the county's internal controls and compliance with laws and regulations. The report is not intended to provide an opinion on the internal controls, nor is it intended to provide a legal determination on the county's compliance with applicable laws. That report was performed in accordance with government auditing standards, and that was a clean audit opinion. The next compliance report is related to your single audit, so these are your grant fundings. In the current year, we had to audit the Medicaid program because that is where the majority of the expenditures are for federal expenditures or a federal program. We did not have to audit any of your state grants because your expenditures in fiscal year 2023 didn't meet the required threshold. It has to be over $500,000 to require a single audit for state expenditures. We did audit the Medicaid program, and we issued an unmodified opinion in accordance with uniform guidance, basically a clean audit opinion of your federal programs. We identified no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. And that is amazing. For a Medicaid program and how many individual eligibility determinations that are made by your county offices, most counties have Medicaid eligibility findings, so that was really good. The next couple of slides are required communication. Sometimes you see these in a form of a letter. We do it communicating through this PowerPoint. The first one is about significant accounting policies. Ultimately, management is responsible for determining the significant accounting policies. They are disclosed in Note 1 of the basic financial statements. In the current year, we did have to implement what's called GASB Statement 96 related to subscription-based IT information agreements, or SABITAs for short. We did determine that was immaterial to the county, so we actually didn't book any journal entries or record any SABITAs on the county's financial statements. But we did have to review it as part of our testing this year, and that is one of the things that took a little while to get through. We did ultimately determine that the accounting policies that the county has are in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, and the county was not involved in any controversial or emerging issues related to any guidance that was out there. Within the financial statements, you should be aware that management does make judgments and estimates in the financial statements based on their knowledge and experience in past and current events. And some of those estimates include actuarial assumptions that you have hired actuaries to determine. The next slide tells you that from a relationship standpoint, we received full cooperation from county management. There were no disagreements with management. As part of the audit, we do require management to sign what's called a management representation letter, basically saying that the information they gave me was accurate, complete, and they basically gave us everything that we needed, and they're agreeing with different things in that representation letter. The next item is that we are not aware that management consulted with any other accountants. And then if there were any significant issues, we did discuss them with management, but we didn't have any significant issues to discuss. The next slide does let you know that there was one past audit adjustment. This is a similar adjustment that we had in the prior year. In fiscal year 2022, we had to implement GASB 87 related to leases. And we determined that that was immaterial for the county, but it's a little bit more than just what we call trivial. And so there was a past audit adjustment for about $37,000, where we did not record a lease and a related liability that offset it. So pretty much washed on the balance sheet. From a financial disclosure perspective, what we do when we read the financial disclosures in your financial statements is we make sure that the information agrees to the numbers being presented in your statements, and that the information is overall neutral and consistent and provides clarity for disclosures purposes. The next one says that our responsibility for other information in the document containing the county's basic financial statements and our report thereon does not extend beyond our report, which is also included in our opinion. And if you decide to provide a copy of it to outside parties, please let us know. And then the last slide does say that we are independent of the county. This next slide goes through some recommendations we have. So as part of our audit, we did issue what's called a management letter. It's a management that it includes recommendations. These aren't items that we consider to be material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. They're really areas of improvement. When we were reviewing the county's internal control questionnaires provided, we determined there was not a well-defined process for financial reporting that is documented and approved and reviewed on a regular basis, that the county's finance department is small, and we recommend that the financial reporting policies and closeout procedures be documented. This was a same management letter comment from the prior year. And the next recommendation we had when we were reviewing controls over the landfill and water revenue and accounts receivable, we noted that the county indicated that they're working on developing processes and controls related to billing records, delinquent receivables, and just generally the overall process for recording revenue and receivables. So we recommended that billing records and delinquent receivables should be reviewed on a periodic basis, and that review should be conducted by someone independent of the billing and cash collection process. And that we also recommended that deposits, cancellation, and refunds policies should be clearly written and adhered to. There were no audit findings from this. This is just somewhere where you can have some process improvements. This next one is one that we gave to every single entity that we audited in North Carolina for fiscal year 2023. Basically what this says is in the last 2 years you had to implement GASB 87 and 96, and we recommend that the county create its own capitalization threshold for these assets. Currently your capitalization threshold is $5,000 for all capital assets. We think it should be higher for these types of assets. And so that's just a recommendation going forward, because we continue to have to monitor the assets that should be recorded for GASB 87 and 96, and if you increase your threshold, it would be less work for your finance department to keep track of them. And just an FYI, there are a couple GASB pronouncements that are coming down the pipeline. The first one is GASB 100, which is applicable for fiscal year 2024, and we will work with management if that is something that does come up and need to be implemented. It basically is additional disclosures for accounting changes and error corrections, which we hope there are none. And then statement 101 related to compensated absences is also coming up, but that's applicable for fiscal year 2025. And that one actually requires the county to have historical information related to vacation and sick leave that will help you determine your liability going forward for compensated absence. So that's something that the county actually needs to take action on now to make sure that you can pull that historic information. But we will talk about that with the county when we have our fiscal year 2024 planning meeting. And then there are a couple pending GASB projects. One is related to the reexamination of the financial reporting model, and that is final standards anticipated this year. If that has any impact on the county, we will make sure that we work with them on that standard. There's also a revenue and expense recognition project. We have to wait till about 2027 to get that one, so we will hold on any discussion on that. And then there's a going concern uncertainty and severe financial stress project that will not come out to about 2026. So we have some room before more pronouncements come out. But every single time you have pronouncement, that requires the finance department additional work, fortunately. Their job is not going to get any easier. And this slide right here just lets you know that we do offer advisory service as part of our firm. Some of the items on this slide we can do and maintain independence, and some we cannot do. But this gives you an idea of different things that are out there and available from accounting firms. And if there's something that's out there that you're looking at that would impair our independence, we could always give you a reference to another firm that can help with those things. But this is just an informational slide. And the last slide just lets you know that as part of an additional service to our clients, we offer free CPE. It's actually 32 hours a year of CPE. We do quarterly trainings that are 8 hours a day. And these are a couple of topics that we do, but that's just an additional service that we offer the folks that do need CPE to maintain their license. That's it. Does anyone have any questions?
Yes, I have a question. The 4 performance indicators, could you repeat again the time frame in which it must be modified to the LGC?
60 days.
60 days. Gotcha. Thank you.
And we actually, so the Local Government Commission has already reviewed the financial statements that were submitted the fiscal year 2023, and they've already approved them without any changes. And then they sent a letter, was it yesterday maybe, indicating, hey, you have financial performance indicators that you need to respond to. So that communication has already came from them.
Okay. Thank you so much.
And it has to be signed by, I believe, all the commissioners.
Any other questions, commissioners?
A lot to process.
It is. All right, no other questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next under presentations, 5, update by Ms. Sarah Tinkham, Community and Government Relations for Roanoke Connect.
Y'all have the PowerPoint? Oh, I had a PowerPoint. That's fine. I'll go off the cuff here. For those of you who may not be aware, my name is Sarah Tinkham, and I am the Community and Government Relations Coordinator for FIBE. FIBE is the for-profit subsidiary of Roanoke Cooperative, based in Ahoskie. So ultimately, FIBE, our goal is to serve the rural areas of our service territory. We, of course, piggyback on the footprint of Roanoke Cooperative and their electric poles. We do aerial fiber mostly, but sometimes we do go underground if the circumstances warrant that. We just actually completed our Gates County build in early April. At this time, I wish I could answer if we have plans to do an expanded build in Gates County, but that is above my pay grade. If you are curious about that, I can definitely get with my leadership and find out more information about that. But ultimately, we love serving the unserved and underserved areas of North Carolina. Basically, if you're not familiar with those terms, the North Carolina Department of Information Technology, they look at unserved as areas of the state that either have no broadband access or underserved, meaning they have very little options for broadband access. So that is something that FIBE really prides itself on, not only serving these rural areas, but having a presence in these areas, whether that's through community service events, hosting business after hours events with our chambers of commerce in all of our counties. We just love being involved. We love sponsoring. We love having youth sports leagues, for example, that run around with FIBE jerseys on during their T-ball season. So that is something we are very passionate about. Another part of my position is working with the ACP program, some of you may be familiar with. Unfortunately, the program is in limbo right now. We are hoping Congress will come up with some kind of refunding model for that program because it currently serves about 3 million people in the country. So that is something that I do administer with FIBE, so hopefully that will come back. If not, FIBE is actually considering a low-cost internet plan for those who may have to come off ACP and still have an affordable internet package that they can use at home. Let's see, what else? We serve Gates County, Northampton County, Hertford County, Bertie County, Halifax, as well as soon a small portion of Martin County. And currently we're looking at some CAB applications for different service areas. And then we are also looking ahead to BEAD funding, which should be, we're hoping that launches by Thanksgiving or so of this year. So that's something we're really trying to get our ducks in a row for. So we're ready to jump right in for some of that funding that North Carolina is going to receive. I believe it's 1.4 billion with a B. So yeah, that's something we're looking ahead to. Another thing that I touched on is some of our community service events. We do what we call We Care Days in each of our counties. We try to rotate every year and get in several of them each year. We are working with Miss Reba Holly, and we are going to be doing a project with her nonprofit. And we may actually be able to fit in a second Gates County nonprofit, but I am still working through the proposal and all the details on that. But that is just a very quick overall update. I know you guys have a lot on your agenda. Before I go, does anyone have any questions?
Yes, I have a question. In the event that the ACP doesn't come through,
Yes.
how would that model look for the low-cost package for individuals?
Our price point would be around the same as that ACP credit. The maximum is $30 per month. So we're hoping to have a FIBE plan that's about that $30 per month for those that are eligible coming off the ACP program.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right.
No more questions at this time?
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your
Really
presentation.
appreciate it. Thank you all. Have a great night.
All right, next on the list, item C is Broadband Committee, report by Mr. Erna Bright.
I hate to follow her, really, I'll be honest with you. She might not like what I say. Commissioners, County Manager, thank you for what you have done in supporting broadband. And I can say, we're not going to need any BEAD money, I hope. So that's how far along. We're 97% served in Gates County at this point, what it looks like. And if Scott Pierce has anything different, I think that's how we are now. We're still having some issues with a particular provider by not wanting to raise his cables up, or their cables up. I sent the 5th email yesterday, and we'll see what happens. But basically, we have 4 or 5 farms that they haven't even touched. We're working with the North Carolina Farm Bureau Federation. They have been a big sponsor in backing this particular problem. They had a sprayer spraying in the field in the western part of the state. It's just not in the east now. They contacted the 8400, and it burnt the sprayer up. And thank goodness he stayed in the sprayer and didn't get off on the ground, or he would have been electrocuted. And they were able to get the fire out and wait for the power company to kill. So it can be life and death with these combines and cotton pickers and sprayers underneath these low lines. And we have about 12 here in the county still they haven't touched. But every provider knows, every provider's been sent pictures, and we'll see what goes of that. And I kind of reminded them that CAB is coming up, so, you know, that we picked CAB. But I can say FIBE has done an excellent job here in the county. I've had the least amount of callbacks to go behind them on. Few problems that FIBE has had as well as Spectrum, is not meeting service appointments on time or having problems when they get there and having to come back, not talking with the customer, not coming back. But I have addressed that problem, and you probably have heard about that. So that will get better as time goes on. When it comes to CAB, the broadband group, which is not just Gates County, it's the Roanoke area, we have a broadband collaborative that works through the Rural Center and the Albemarle Commission. We meet every Monday, every Tuesday at 11 o'clock and go over problems that we've encountered and what's coming up and how much funding is left. Right now, there's a lot of money left that's not been spent or not been asked for. It's huge dollars, so that will expand hopefully into some other programs that we have talked about. One of them is with infrastructure with our 911 centers and the Viper radio network for the state, where there's no cell towers or any towers served at this time, and we're hoping to have some money, some of those funds allocated after the fact that the broadband is over with. It's still part of the broadband picture. It sounds like it might be out of that, but this is ultimately is to provide service to every household and up to 1 gig and reasonable price, and so far that's happening. I will say that our county residents that are listening or wondering, make sure that you know what you're getting and what you pay for. If you switch your cell phone to them, you have negated with one provider their contract for the 5-year plan for what you signed up for. So ask about that. You know, be careful. And they're offering other packages. So right now, 5 years with ARPA money is what they have to guarantee the price at that you signed up for. But they're finding a loophole in there about other things you put on there. So make sure. Things that we have run into here in Gates County too, which will be addressed in another part here in just a minute, is the work afterwards. There's several spools of fiber left sitting on the side of the road that I've identified. That's a lot of money sitting out there somebody needs to take ownership of. And we'll hopefully get that remedied real soon. There's been some vacant metal cable spools that have been left, that the subduct was left on and parked on the side of the roads. If you ride by and see one that don't have an orange flag, it's because somebody's come and taken it off, because I flagged them for them so they can't miss them. So we're working on getting that taken care of. So the heights and the things. There's still a few places that some splicing has to be done, and I think 5 is pretty much finished theirs here in the county. Spectrum says they have, but they haven't. But they'll be working on theirs, I hope, soon. We have met, the committee, the county manager, with Brightspeed. They have money that they haven't started on in projects that were awarded for ARPA, and they will be going to Core Peak and Gates. At this time, that's the 2 places that they have chosen that they have the funds for. They will be overlashing and overburying their existing plant. They will be aerial as much as possible, just like 5 and Spectrum has been. But where they have buried plant, which is pretty much Gates, there'll be a lot of buried plant going on, and they'll be trying to get some in the air with joint use poles, and they're still working on that. The good thing about that is we laid down the SOFART law about how they're going to do it in Gates County. They're going to have to let us know when they're coming in, what they're going to be doing, where their build's at, contacts, and prove to us that they are going to be doing it. And they won't be able to start any plowing until it's been located. And I have the good thing, I work with all these guys, and I have their home phone numbers, plus I have their cell phones. So, and they'll tell you that the engineers were, when I worked, I was a pain in their butts, and I'll be a pain in their butts again. I hate to say it that way, but that's just how it's going to be. You come to Gates County, do it right. we want the best. We have identified, when I said the CAB money, the county had set aside a substantial amount of money for that. We will be nowhere near using that amount of money that was set. We don't know who's going to bid on it yet. We don't know who will get to bid until we actually meet. But what we have with them through the cooperative group, through the Rural Center, through the Farm Bureau, and the Albemarle Commission, and the Western group as well, there now is a list that has been compiled that they will have to follow to get that money. They will have to tell us how they're going to be using their existing infrastructure. And the second part of that will come back to universal service, the ACP plan. What are they going to have available? This is where our congressmen and senators need to be here from this board to help. I know there's one part of the group of the political spectrum that says it's not needed, but if they lived in rural North Carolina, it's needed. So we need to be on them about that. And I am aware too that FIBE is offered, and they're going to come up with their own plans if this falls through. But they're going to have to agree that the universal service will be available. They're going to also have to prove to us the scalability, which is how much bandwidth and what they're offering in the house. It's just not going to be, we're going to offer you 100 megs. They're going to have to prove to us that they can offer 100 megs over a certain period of time with no disruptions. And that's 100 megs up and 100 megs down is the minimum they'll be able to get by with. And that goes back even right now with Brightspeed, even though they are using early ARPA money to complete their build, they have to meet those same things as well now. There'll be some managed services that they're going to have to prove to that they can do, which is lifelines, managed router services, give us what they can and cannot do. How many lines they can put in a business, what their biggest amount of gigs they can provide a business. We will have to know all that before we actually pick who we're going to serve. Right now, everybody's pretty much 1 gig. FIBE can offer more than that, and they can offer more than 1 line. And I haven't gotten everything back yet from Spectrum. Brightspeed will be able to offer more than 1 line, but it'll be to a router. The next thing they're going to have to prove to us is who owns the router, how long is the service going to be good for? Is that your router, or if it goes out, are you going to charge somebody $800 for a router? And if you're getting service now, ask them that question: whose router is it? Is it mine or is it yours? And that could be very expensive. So far in the old days of DSL, it was pretty much Brightspeeds or whoever. And I don't know about cable modems, how long theirs was, because I didn't have that opportunity. So that's one thing that you need to think about, and that we're going to stand behind on as to what they're doing. They're going to be held accountable during construction. They'll sign a paperwork that says, okay, we're going to be accountable. And that is where we dig at, what we cut, we're going to have it fixed, we're going to pay for it, whatever it takes. And it also is going to be on the follow-up. The problems we're running in now, everybody in Gates County that's ever dug a hole in the wintertime and it's raining knows what happens in March, April, and May. The hole opens back up even though it's been filled up. I've had to get both providers to go back and fill up holes that are caving in now, and they are doing it with no problem. But this would be, again, it'll be in writing from now on. They'll have to take care of that for a certain period of time. They're going to have to provide documentation of quality of service, which is how long you've been in business, what's your service, how many complaints you've had, and can you sustain it? Do you have a ring network? So if one fiber gets cut, does it ring around some? If it rings, how much of the network can it hold? And that'll kind of be, that's ongoing. Everybody is new and getting this in, so some of the ring might not be there at this time, but they're going to have to prove that they're looking at doing a ring. Say you won't be without phone service if you switch, might not be without cell phone service if you switch. So we need to know those things that we didn't know before, but they'll have to back that up in writing and proof. Another thing is, it's not going to be allowed as FCC with us in the Gates County and the group is throttling. You will be, if you're paying for 100 megs or 500 megs or a gig, you're going to be expected to be delivered 100, a gig over a gig. No cutting back with peak times of service. Now, there will be some times we realize that when they're upgrading or doing things that service will slow down, or when they're building new rings or whatever, there'll be some bottlenecks once in a while. But for the most part, we want it. If you're paying for 100 megs at your house, you're going to get 100 megs. If you're paying for a gig, you're going to get a gig. The other thing that we have talked about this week is if those that are already on the service, and you might notice your laptop will not keep up with your 1 gig. If you've got an old laptop, it's only a 5G connection, you might get 625 down and you might get 900 up, which don't make sense, but that's just the way that modem sees it, and that's just the way your laptop is. So all the new modems are going to have to be 6G and eventually be 6G. Well, for all 5G, 6G, and coming up 7G. Now, right now, I priced a 7G laptop, and I don't think I'm going to have one for a good while. But if you can't do what you're doing on 6 or 5, maybe you need a dedicated, go ahead and switch to your Ethernet port, and you can get it. So that's another thing they're going to have to do. And all this will have to follow through the county manager's office. And so Scott and myself at this point will be keeping up with that, and we're going to hold them to the fire for the money. We have identified for CAB in the beginning, we had 313 they said were not served. Then they dropped down to 212, and then they dropped down to 78. Well, I visited all 78 of those locations, and we came up with 13. 1 and 2 roads mainly that haven't been served at all. We found out in our meeting we had with the mapping group from North Carolina Department of Information Technology. It was I had a little bit of fun on that, a little bit too much fun, but one of the engineers that's on there said, "I remember you." She said, "I used to work for you with you." I said, "Yes, and I'm the same then and as I am right now." So we could not challenge their maps. So every hunting trailer, every pig shelter, you name it, got picked. My funnest one I enjoy is on Peach Orchard Lane or Road. For you don't know it, it's a sandy road. It goes down dead ends and then it goes to the river or the creek. Well, there's a hunting cabin or a little trailer back there. They wanted to put fiber all the way down there 2.2 miles to that trailer. I don't think the deer hunters and the fox hunters or the fishermen need that. So, that's just a little idea of what we have seen. Ashton Lewis Sawmill, they came up with 17 positions down there that need it. Well, there's 1 office and 24 buildings outside that they want 1 gig going to every one of them. We're not going to pay for that. If Lewis Sawmill wants that in their group, well, hey, one of them would be glad to put it back there for them. But the network is there. We don't have to pay for that. But as it stands right now, it looks like Lawrence Lane and Cotton Gin Road are pretty much the 2 places that haven't gotten anything to them. Everybody else can be served with a long drop or some reroutes, which I've talked with Fab about on some of those. But we'll see what happens. The bids are to be finished up this month, and then we will know in a short amount of time after that who's bid on them. And then it'll be up to the county to pick who we feel like do what we need left in Gates County. but we are the most served county right now in the state of North Carolina, and the most rural served county. And that comes right back to what she said earlier. They jumped in, they went, my house area where I live, we're on nobody's maps. And I'm a customer, and they put it out there, and I mean, all of us there have it, and we're happy with it. I can't really say, but when you ask for service, ask them, and they're going to have to tell you this now with this with CAB. Is your service 100% fiber? Is it a hybrid fiber to coax? Is it a hybrid fiber to copper? Is it a hybrid using fixed wireless? Because all of them are different. And if they're telling you it's 100% fiber, it needs to be 100% fiber. There's no mixing of the services. In the western part of the state and probably in Hyde County, Washington, and Terrell County, there'll be some hybrids because it's too expensive. And they're looking at that, and the Department of Information Technology has been aware of that, so, we'll see what happens there. But that's not us. But we are a part of the region, and we are putting in our 2 cents worth too to kind of help everybody else. And everybody wants a 5, I'll be honest with you, in all the meetings. But I don't think you can go everywhere that people that want it. But that's kind of how we stand right now. We're looking good, and I have been in contact with Dr. Riddick and before we have our meetings and stuff on Skype. She's keeping up with it. So, do you have any questions?
I have a couple. When you were saying that about this cable, the things that they are left in the road, in the fields, I know on Highway 32 there are several places where cable is coming out of the ground with nothing. Who do we need to report that to?
Just taken care of.
Okay. And also these big rain, where the cables were on, they're scattered around.
They're scattered around, 37 of them to be exact.
You kind of need to clean up your mess when you bring it,
Right now, there's 71 miles of fiber optic cable on reels at basically $3 or $5 a foot. So you figure out how much is left sitting on the shoulder of the road.
Why are they just going, it's not hooked up to anything where it's sticking out of the ground.
The amount of contractors in here working, you remember how it was, how stuff was getting cut. Contractors were getting fired, left, and
They just walked away.
accountability went away.
Okay. Is Brightspeed still in the county?
Yes,
Okay, I didn't realize that. And
only DSL and POTS at this time. And they will be starting in June, like I said, going to Core Peak and Gates. They're totally northwest of 158. They're leaving their central office and coming toward Gates, going up 13. They're not coming across 158 at this time. Core Peak is going to be from, the houses they pass on 32 going north, they might offer it there since they got to take it right by there in the air. But their official start point is Folly Road going north, and then coming up Drum Hill, Union Branch Road, that part of the way, and up 13, they're going into the Sandbanks area back up there. So all those folks that live up there will have 3 providers to go for. And pricing, like I say, varies from $49 a month to $60 a month, but just make sure you know what you're getting.
you need to read the fine print, because I've had somebody tell me something that it's not kosher.
And they're going to be building and providing service as they go. They've got a little bit different plan, a little bit different type of fiber they're deploying, like they have in Chowan County and in Windfall and Dare County and a couple of places like that in the western part of the state in their POTS footprint.
Yes, I have a question also. The safety of our constituents is a chief concern of us commissioners. I know you mentioned about the incident about the individual almost getting electrocuted. What accountability practices are in place for the delay of lower aerial lines?
That depends. That's kind of a thing we're getting changed. The rural electrification, which is rural REAs and Albemarle Electrics and all that kind of stuff, run at Chelwan, they met 2 years ago, and their policy is nothing lower than 19 feet 6 inches. The current standards is 18 feet across a road or some places. If it's a high-tension line, depending on how much voltage is above it, this kind of thing. They can be as low as 12 foot 5 inches on stuff that's out there right now that's grandfathered, that's existing plant. And that's where Brightspeed, and they've so far have agreed that if we find a location that a combine or tractor's got to go over, they're going to dip and go under it and then come back up. That's their plans right now. The North Carolina Farm Bureau Federation is on it big time. We have gotten several state senators and representatives behind us now. Department of Information Technology has finally decided the 19 foot 5 inch or 19.6 is going to be the standard. Anything new from this point on. But I have had no problems with 5 moving anything. Still a few places they've got to go back and splice. Spectrum is moved a lot, but there's still a few left. But it's, and anything out there now, like where five is not 5, but Spectrum is in your area. If it's a coax cable that's across the driveway at 9.5 feet, that was the old standard. And I've taken several pictures of that one and sent to them. I can stand in the back of my truck and do whatever I want to, in the bed of my truck, not on the toolbox. There's some of those left, but hopefully we'll get that remedy too. But if you're ever in a meeting with any state folks or any utility commission people, DOT, let them know, 19 foot, 6 inches. And it's in with the new cab. Cab is 19 foot 6 inches. And plowing is 41 inches. If they can't get it 41 inches deep, they can't put it in the ground. They're balking at that a little bit, and I said, well, you go some places in Chelwan County and Gates County, a ripper hipper is going to take that out at 41 inches. Or 36 inches is what they want to do, 30 to 36 inches. But a ripper and a good tractor will pull it out of the ground with no problem. And that includes Bertie and Hertford County as well, where there's some sandy type ground.
Thank you, Mr. Bray.
Anything else?
Any other questions? Well, Mr. Bright, thank you for your time and your service and what you're doing for the county and the residents. I'll say it probably wouldn't be this fall without you. So, I do appreciate it. 97% complete. I remember him at the ballpark being called the phone guy, and then the internet guy, and now it's the fiber optic guy.
Yeah.
So, but we appreciate everything you do for us. We really do. Thank you. All right. Moving on to item D under reports and presentations. Ms. Commissioner Truman will present the opioid committee report.
Okay, thank you. 1 second here. All right. So last November, I believe it was November 1st, we had the town hall for the to meet the requirements for the settlement funds. Trying to get my dates straight. I have my papers here. Yep, November 1st, we had that first town hall. We're supposed to have one annually. I mentioned that we would have one in the spring. That was advertised for. So the first part of this is opening it up if anybody has any public comment or question regarding the opioid task force in the county, the settlement funds, or anything thereabouts. Now would be the time to come to the podium as a town hall sort of opening.
So we'll open the floor, the podium,
Yeah.
up for public suggestions for the opioid funding applications. Is there anyone that would like to speak about funding or allocations for opioid?
No.
Okay.
Okay, so just to fill y'all in on that then, we have not met the past couple months. I've been having some meetings with different ones in the community. I have some upcoming meetings coming through from now through the end of June with other counties, as well as people in our county. The state committee, the One More Thing Planning Committee for the state initiative has, I've been able to attend some training with a few other commissioners around the state for that. We went April 30th. It feels like it's been longer ago than that, but just a couple weeks. April 30th to Lenoir in Caldwell County. And something that our opioid task force here has been pushing for a lot was the subject of our speakers and our topics at that meeting. So it was engaging with faith-based communities. A lot of our group that meets on the task force have pushed meeting with churches and pastors, reverends around the county, and trying to talk to them in regards to how to move forward as a community with these funds. Thankfully, unlike most money that we get, there is no deadline to spend this. So we don't have to rush to have a plan now. We're trying to figure out what's best for Gates County. So while the money is still coming in, we're working on a plan. We do hope to have something to bring forward in the next fiscal year. So it would be later that we bring something forward, but we want to make sure that whatever we do is going to be for the best thing for our county. There have been lots of suggestions, and we have certain strategies that we have to adhere to with the options that we were given. So as we move forward, we will continue to update you all. The next meeting is May 30th. Don't have my calendar, I'm sorry. The last Thursday of the month at 4 p.m. We have previously been meeting here. That will be moving to the EOC for time purposes, so we don't have to keep everybody over late when we stay late for meetings. But anybody, if you're interested in that, you're welcome to reach out to come. You're also welcome to apply to be on the board or on the committee if you're interested and live in the county. We do have a representative from Yor and from Gates. Would love to have representatives from other areas of the community. And if not other areas of the community, various demographics would be great. We do have somewhat of a variety on the board, but it would be nice to have every demographic in the community covered so that we can reach those that we have. If you are, I want to put this out there because this was something that another county had mentioned that there were some reservations for, but people in the community that have been in active use, that are now in recovery, that have had a child that is in recovery, or has lost a child or a family member, your input is valuable. And the most valuable of those would be those that have been in active use, that have experience in that, and being able to share with us what would help you when you were in that place. So if you're out there and you're interested or you've considered it and you have that in your past or in your present and you would like to offer something, we would love to hear from you at one of our meetings. And I think that would be it.
Thank you, Commissioner Truman. Commissioners, do you have any questions? Okay. All right, moving on to item E. So 911 Communications Division Advisory Board. So for Clemens County Emergency Services, they have a 911 Communications Division Advisory Board. Ooh, getting tongue-tied. All right, so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna just read it to y'all, and I'll ask y'all to probably take some action on it after. So the purpose of the 911 Communications Division of Clemens County Emergency Services operates Clemens Gates 911 Communication. The purpose of the 911 Communications Division Advisory Board is to analyze and evaluate community expectations for 911 service delivery, assess and recommend new strategies to improve public safety, identify and advocate for needs, resources to achieve public safety objectives, and serve as a communication forum for public safety matters in Clemens and Gates counties. The 911 Communications Division Advisory Board serves as the pleasure of the Clemens County Board of Commissioners. All right, so on this advisory board, this is what the recommendation is, and hadn't been chosen yet, but we'll move forward. 1 county commissioner from Paquemmons and Gates counties. 1 county manager from Paquemmons and Gates counties. 1 town councilor from Town of Hertford and Town of Windfall. 1 town manager from the Town of Hertford and Town of Windfall. 1 emergency management from Paquemmons and Gates counties. 1 sheriff from Paquemmons and Gates counties. 1 EMS representative from Paquemmons and Gates counties. 1 representative from each fire department in Paquemmons and Gates counties. 1 representative from the NC Forestry for Paquemmons and Gates counties. 1 representative from each department of social services for Paquemmons and Gates County. Paquemmons Emergency Service Director and 911 Administrator, and invited guests as approved by the county managers and emergency service directors. So these meetings will be scheduled. So the 911 Communications Division Board typically meets on the 4th Thursday in the months of January, July, and October, unless rescheduled. A minimum of a semi-annual meeting. So as far as oversight, emergency service directors is tasked to organize and conduct the quarterly meetings to include producing an agenda, meetings minutes for each meeting, and meeting correspondence and relayed via emails to the members that are decided on this. So this is something that we have to do as far as a merger like we've done. And it's advisory board. It's just not one county making all the decisions for the other. It's a broad aspect. So I would like to ask for a motion to move forward with the Paquemmons County Emergency Services 911 Communication Division Advisory Board as stated.
So moved.
Second.
All right. As properly motioned and seconded, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Well. All in favor say nay. I mean, all opposed say nay. All right, ayes have it. All right. Moving along to new business. All right, is item A under new business is GETS readoption and conflict of interest policy.
This is an annual action that we're required to do for the federal government.
Yeah. So, does anyone have any questions? Nothing's changed on it. All right. So, motion to readopt the conflict of interest policy.
So moved.
Second.
All right, I have properly motioned and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Ayes have it. All right, the next item B, DSS board appointee. Get to the right page.
What was that? Okay.
All right, so Ms. Renee McGinnis has agreed to serve another term on the Gates County Department of Social Services Board. So the action is a motion to approve and disapprove reappointment of Renee McGinnis to be reappointed to serve a 3-year term with Gates County Department of Social Services Board effective May 15th, 2024, expire June 30th of 2027.
I make a motion to reappoint Renee McGinnis to another term on the DSS.
There's a motion on the floor.
Second.
I have a second. It's been properly motioned and second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Ayes have it. All right, the next is Gates County Planning Board reappointments. So you have them in your packet in front of them. There are 2 vacant seats. The vacancies have been advertised in the newspaper on the county's website. So we have Ms. Mary A. Lacey to serve a 3-year term. So the motion to reappoint Mary A. Lacy to serve a 3-year term on the Gates County Planning Board effective May 15th, 2024, and expire on May 2027.
Make a motion to reappoint.
Second.
All right, properly moved and second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Ayes have it. All right, item D, I want to ask the county manager to discuss the budget amendments.
Thank you, and I believe all four of these could be accomplished in a single motion. They're all year-end reconciliations for various accounts. F24-018 is to allocate the sales tax receipts to cover wage adjustments that were approved by the board in November. Budget amendment F22-019, and that first one is for the general fund positions. F24-019, again, is to allocate sales tax receipts to cover wage adjustments approved November 1st, and that is for GITS, the transportation system. It's a separate fund, Fund 26. The next one, I want to ask for some technical help. If you can pull up the first page of my PowerPoint, will that come up? And if it won't come up, I'll just start talking. F24-0201 is a reconciliation to allocate additional sales tax and appropriated fund balance for the sheriff's office in two categories: the inmate housing and the inmate medical expenses for $92,000 and $8,000 respectively. And we've given a little detail so that for the benefit of our audience at home, they can see this. And we'll go back and, yeah, there we go. There are, in every budget cycle, circumstances that are beyond the control of the county related to criminal activity, extended detention of various offenders as they await trial, violent offenders that cannot be put out on early release. And the best projection that we have in consultation with the sheriff's office is that we're going to need about $100,000, hopefully a little less, but we think that's a fair estimate to get us through the rest of the fiscal year. And I want to point out, historically, the sheriff's office in Gates County, when we have the audit, puts money back to the treasury. The audit that our presenter just discussed this evening for fiscal year 23 that ended June 30 of 2023 reflect that there was a positive budget variance, meaning money left over, to the tune of almost $250,000, $246,838. The year before that, the sheriff's office had $140,663. And that's the combination of the two primary cost centers, the law enforcement piece and the jail component, where we pay to house our detainees in a regional or adjoining county. Over the last 6 years, the Gates County Sheriff's Office has put back to the general fund $1.2 million. So we have this 1 year for the year we're closing out, FY24, where we've had an exceptionally busy year with the handling of inmates, where it's required that we add $100,000 to help close out the year. So I think this is why we have fund balance. This is why we have reserves available. And I wouldn't want anybody to think there's any other story behind it. It was very, I think, reasonable adjustment to proposed. The next page, similarly, is for the Board of Elections. This has been a banner year for the Board of Elections with the relocation to a new facility. And that definitely was time-consuming and a lot of work for their staff and the board. And so we have another slide, or do I need to do that? I'm sorry. Tell you what, you can't teach old dogs new tricks. Maybe I don't have it on.
Yeah, I think
Flip it the other way. Oh. There we go. Board of Elections. In order to cover what we believe is the necessary expenditures primarily for part-time staff, we are proposing a budget amendment of $40,000. This will be coming from fund balance and sales tax. And again, the Board of Elections has traditionally had funding left in the form of a positive budget variance for the last 6 years. And in the case, and this is a much smaller agency, put back $65,441. This is an exceptional year. We've had 2 primary elections, so we're suggesting that $40,000 is the necessary figure to reconcile those accounts. So I think it would be appropriate for those budget amendments, all of them are F24 for fiscal 24, 018, 019, 020, and 021 for consideration by the governing body.
All right, action requesting motion to approve budget amendments F24-018 through F24-021.
A motion to approve.
I have a motion on the floor.
Second.
I have a second. Any discussion?
Board of Elections, we've had 2 primaries in a lot of years. That's, and we managed to have enough money. That's a right good jump.
Well, we've reached the position in the fiscal year where
I mean, I know we're going
it's what's going to be necessary. I've had a number of discussions with Mr. Eason, the board chair. The finance officer has spent several hours talking with the director, and we believe that this is the best estimate to close out the fiscal year.
Any other discussion? We have to close out the fiscal year. And then if we need to make adjustments for next year,
That's coming up.
then we can do that.
And I think it's also good that in the past, we didn't have to go this route. So this is an exception to the rule. So I think it's justifiable.
Okay, so there was a motion and a second. So all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by saying nay. Ayes have it.
Thank you. Item E under new business is the contract for next year's audit that Ms. Bagasala mentioned. Their proposed rate for next year is $68,000, and that's a negotiated rate. If we weren't going to consider the possibility of a 3-year engagement, we'd be looking at $75,000 for this next audit. The contract before you, though, is just for 1 year, but they have sent a letter of commitment with $68,000 for year 1, $71,000 for year 2, and $74,000 for year 3. So I think we've got a fair set of proposals, and this was, I think, a very busy year for them. One of the things that she did not elevate for discussion or presentation that I think is certainly important is that we started a fiscal year July 1, 2022, and we had turnover in the finance officer position right before Christmas, December 22, and then in February we had turnover in the manager's position, and we weren't able to fill the finance director position until May 1st.
Right.
So, yes, there are some areas where there can be better policies and procedures in place, improved reporting, but I think given the circumstances that the board worked through, we are now in a position where we won't be late next year. And we will write that up in a letter to the LGC explaining the fact that we've had some significant turnover in Gates County. But I think we worked well with Malden and Jenkins, and I would certainly support your approval for this one-year contract for $68,000.
Okay. Action requested is a motion to approve contract with Marty A. Jenkins LLC for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024, in the amount of $68,000.
So move.
Second.
All right, got a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I have a question when it comes to that, because you would have more experience than me on this, Mr. Sauer, but is it standard to keep an audit company for numbers of years, or is there at any point that you need to consider switching up for a fresh set of eyes, kind of, so to speak?
It certainly is a good practice. Looking back historically, we've had 3 different firms in the last 20 years.
Okay.
And if you're going to go through the exercise to go out for proposals, that really needs to start in January
Right.
at the very, very latest.
Okay.
So I think at the appropriate time, if the board wants to consider that,
Okay.
we
I think
really need
periodically we have made a
to start.
decision to change, but they've not been, this group has not been here, but how many years?
I think 5 out of the
5 or
last 6 years.
Okay, I'd say 5 or 6, yeah.
It was,
But so much has changed in finance. I mean, from the state level, what they're requiring.
well, there are fewer and fewer firms
I know there's not
that
much
are
bigger
in the
anymore.
practice of county and municipal government because of those GASB standards that continue to be implemented, because it makes for a much more arduous process, not just for your staff, but also for their team, so.
Any other discussion? All right, so I've had a motion properly second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed say no.
Thank you.
Ayes have it.
The next few items are really a continuation in the process that this board's been working on now for well over a year, and at the last meeting, the governing body approved the new capital improvement plan for infrastructure. And again, we were dinged in the audit for that capital asset ratio for our public utilities of the 0.49. You know, we've got a utility system that's more than 50 years old. We've got the asset inventory that's coming around with these 2 actions for water and sewer, and you've got just a little over $10 million to reinvest to improve your infrastructure. So I think that score will go up. There was nothing the board or your staff could have done to score it higher than that 0.49. I mean, it is what it is. They reported it accurately. But I think all of our documentation, particularly going into the next audit, is going to reflect the hard work of the governing body and the course that y'all have charted for us to move forward with. So item F is the AIA funding through North Carolina DEQ for the wastewater system. And item G is the AIA funding through DEQ for the water system. And I think those 2 you could certainly consider in tandem, because they're both for those. It's tough to design a new system if you don't have those studies that include the hydraulic examination of particularly the water system.
And this funding will be paid for out of the appropriations that we've had
Yes.
from the state.
Yeah, so we need to make a motion.
Do y'all want me to read this resolution?
Yes. Go ahead.
All right. Resolution authorizing execution of the ARPA as SRP funding, Gates County Wastewater System, AIA project, AIA-WARP-0287 and AIA-W-0289. Whereas North Carolina General Statutes Chapter 159G has created asset inventory assets, AIA grants, to assist eligible units of government with meeting their water infrastructure needs. Whereas American Rescue Plan, ARP, funded from the state fiscal recovery as established as SL 2021-180 to assist eligible units of government with meeting their water, wastewater infrastructure needs. Whereas the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality has offered a state reserve grant in the amount of $150,000 to perform an AIA study detailed in submitted application. Whereas the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality has offered American Rescue Plan, ARP, funding in the amount of $17,000 to perform AIA study detailed and submitted applications. Whereas the County of Gates intends to perform said projects in accordance with agreed scope of work. Now therefore be it resolved by the governing body of the unit of government, the County of Gates does hereby accept the total grant offer of $167,000. That the County of Gates does hereby give assurance that to the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality that conditions or assures contained in the award offer will be adhered to. That Scott Sauer, County Manager, Successor, so titled, hereby authorizes direct to furnish such information an appropriate state agency may request in connection with such application or the project to make assurance of the contained above, and to execute such other departments as may be required to the Division of Water Infrastructure, adopted this day, 15th day of May, 2024, at Gatesville, North Carolina. Action requested motion to approve resolution of acceptance and approval of funding for the NCDEQ Gates County Wastewater System AIA project number AIAWARP 0287 and AIA with 0289 in the amount of $167,000 in project ordinance.
So moved.
Second.
Properly motion and second. All approved signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, moving on to G.
And I think to streamline things, given that it's coming from the same source, the DEQ, through the State Fiscal Recovery Fund, if you went with the language below the now therefore be it resolved, your action tonight is to accept the funding offer with these two resolutions.
Okay. All right, so I'll start this out with be it resolved that the board chair and the county manager are directed to execute the documents of Division of Water Infrastructure application materials associated with this project. The following revenue is anticipated to be available to complete this project. NCDEQ State Reserve Program, ARPA grant, $17,000. NCDEQ State Reserve Program grant, $150,000. Local match, SRP grant, 10% appropriated fund balance, $15,000. Local match, SRP, administrative fee appropriated fund balance, $2250. Total revenue and local funds required. The following amounts, the total funds are $184,250. The following amounts are appropriated for the project. Engineering service, $182,000. SRP grant administrative fee, $2250. Total project cost, $184,250. The county manager and the finance officer are directed to include detailed analysis and past of future costs and revenues on this project annually. Copies of this capital project ordinance shall be furnished to the clerk, to the governing body, and to the county manager and the finance officer for direction in carrying out this project, adopted this day, 15th day of May, 2024.
And just for clarification, the narrative that was just read is the corresponding project ordinance to the acceptance of the offer approved initially. So we've done one and one. So you've approved accepting the money, and then you've approved budgeting how to spend it. If you adopt this ordinance.
So action requested, motion to approve resolution of acceptance and approval of funding offer for NCDEQ Gates County Water System AIA project number AIA-DARP 0286 in the amount of $383,000 in project ordinance.
We need to,
Back up, or go down one on that.
yeah, we need to adopt the project ordinance first and then go back up to the G. So the one you read second was the project
That's
ordinance.
the one
Was
I-
H.
Yeah, so it would be project ordinance 24-001 would be the first motion and second.
You here,
It's,
John?
you read,
Yeah,
It's G here.
That got me confused. That's the one I
F
just
and
read.
Yeah, you
G.
skipped G.
I think we hadn't done F.
We did F.
we did F.
We did
F.
He just read H. We got to go back and do G after we
I did.
Yeah.
vote on H.
It was, yeah,
The motion I just approved was G.
okay, and we have not,
We haven't
have
read
not
that
approved-
resolution.
We have not approved that.
I move, approve that G, the resolution.
The resolution I read first was item F. Then the second resolution was G.
No.
Well, actually, the second item you read, because I think it was under the pink sheet H, was the project ordinance that's tied to item F.
Okay.
So I think we could take them in that order and then do G and then project ordinance number 2, and then those two would be adopted in parallel form.
All right, just want to make sure I get it correct this time.
Yeah, and I apologize, this is so confusing. Next meeting, we've got about 9 of these to do.
Thank you for the heads up.
So I need to reread F.
We can.
No, the board has approved F,
This is the one I just read.
and you read H1, the project ordinance 24001, so I think you could adopt that and then accept the motion from Commissioner Hoffler for G. And I think that would be the correct order.
All right, my page is online enough.
So we need to.
The resolutions for the AIA grants should be under a pink sheet with an F on it. And then the project ordinances are on a pink sheet with an H.
That's what I just read.
Yeah.
Yeah. You go.
All right. Bear with me. All these papers run together. All right. G.
Right, but I would suggest, since you read the entire project ordinance for, that ties to F, it might be appropriate to do H1, which is tied to F, and then H2, which is tied to G. Because these are funding acceptance letters and then the actual authority to spend.
So do H1, go back to G, and then do H2.
2, yes.
Do we need to make?
Now, I'm looking for H. Okay. H is 1 through 4.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
And you thoroughly read H1.
Okay. Okay, action request and motion to approve project ordinance items 1 through 4.
I think you have to do them one at a time, so it'd be 001.
Not 1 through,
Yeah, I think, well, I guess we could.
Yeah, I think we can
Okay.
do all
Yeah.
these at one
It's all
time.
tied
That's,
together.
yeah.
Okay.
I'm missing my right arm here without Joe Leith at my side to kick me under the desk. I'm sorry.
But these are all, yeah.
Yeah, so the ordinances you could do each 1 through 4.
Yep. Action requested, motion to approve projects ordinance items 1 through 4.
So moved.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
And then I think we still need
Ayes have it.
G.
Now we'll go back and grab G again. All right, so G, resolution of acceptance and approval for funding offer of the NCDEQ Gates County Water Systems AIA project, AIAD ARP 0268 for the amount of $383,000 and project ordinance prepared by the finance officer. So the action will be, action requested, motion to approve resolution of acceptance and approval for funding offer NCDEQ Gates County Water System AIA project number AIAD ARP 0286 in the amount of $383,000 and project ordinance.
So moved.
Second.
All signify by saying aye. Aye. Ayes have it.
Thank you.
They got confusing real quick. All right, project contracts. Mr. County Manager.
And again, I think the board could consider this in a similar fashion with the contracts 1 through 4. Each of them are tied to the projects that were recently, well, for the first 4, because you've got the 2 AIA grants, one for the wastewater, one for the water. Then we have the, what's called the lead service line study, that's the $328,000. And then the SRFW is the wastewater restoration for the old plant up off of Honey Pot Road. That's the $472,941. And you've already approved the project ordinances 1 through 4 that are tied to these 4 engineering agreements.
So all of this is for Green Engineering to perform these services
Yes.
that we just spoke about previously.
And we can do all these one at a time. I mean, one as a
We can
group.
do all these
Yes.
in one.
1 through 4.
Yep,
Yes.
okay. Action request, motion to approve project contracts, items 1 through 4.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All right. Properly moved and seconded, all signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Ayes have it.
Thank you.
County manager reports, updates.
I'd like to talk about the audit a little bit. Things have changed in audit presentations. Normally, they talk about the numbers. And we heard about policies, and we heard about GASB accounting standards. And I think for the governing body's understanding and for the benefit of the audience, we should highlight a few things. In your audit book, pages basically 5 and 6 are the statements by management, by your county manager and finance officer. And in this section, we not only talk about the county's fiscal condition, we also create a bit of a historical narrative, because a lot happened between July 1, 22 and June 30, 23. First, the budget ordinance for FY '22-23 included a 5-cent tax increase, raising the tax rate from 79 cents to 84 cents per 100 assessed value. Part of that funding helped the board establish some new positions, and at that time when the budget was adopted, there was an assistant county manager, human resources director, land records / GIS coordinator, and a grant writer. Plus, at that time, the staff received a 5.5% cost of living adjustment in July of 2022. Property tax collections for the year 22-22 reflected an increase of over $700,000. Your efforts to raise revenue through the 5.5 cents plus any other growth that we experienced in Gates County generated tax levy dollars that were new dollars of $712,627. That was a 9.2% increase in tax levy receipts. Sales tax receipts for the year ended June 30, 2023, a year ago. And again, your audit is a snapshot in time. It's 1 day in time. It's at June 30 of 2023. Your sales tax receipts were up 7.3%, or $269,000 above the receipts from the fiscal year behind. Again, $269,000 of receipts above the year before, the prior year receipts. What's interesting is when you compare it with what the board budgeted. In fiscal '23, the board's receipts versus what you budgeted was actually a gain of $960,000 because the board was so conservative in the projection of your, and that was 32%. Your gain in receipts was 32% above what you budgeted for sales tax. The year before that, same identical mark. Your gain was $891,000 and 32.2% receipts above budget. So your fiscal performance was very significant because of your tight budgeting those 2 years. So again, that's major applause and kudos to the governing body. I'm telling history now. This is nothing that I had a part of other than trying to help prepare the report. The fiscal year that ended June 30 of 2023, the board also appropriated fund balance. You took money out of your reserves, and the first item up was a balloon payment on the debt service to finish off the debt on the DSS building. So that was the $462,561. And because it was a prepayment in the form of a balloon payment, there's a $4,626 penalty payment. But again, you were retiring a debt early, so you used fund balance for that. There was also the initial installment on your financing for the Viper radio project, $430,000. So your use of those fund balance reserves were strategic in that you were paying for a capital project and retiring debt. And again, that's the year that ended June 30, 23. The year prior to that, or excuse me, during the year 2023, that's what your ordinance had. During the year 2023, your appropriation of fund balance increased to $2.6 million. It went up 1.758, $1,758,000. Those dollars were tagged as follows. There was $1.29 million capital outlay for the Viper radios. That was the loan proceeds that the county had borrowed, because when you borrowed the money, it went into your fund balance. So then you appropriated it so you could spend it and purchase those. So the money was used for the purpose for which the board planned and had authorized. There was also an advance payment to Southern Bank, principal only, of $127,000. And then the other capital project that the board approved after the adoption of the project, or the budget ordinance, was $135,000 for capital outlay in the sheriff's office for vehicles. So your use of fund balance, again, was not to cover operating expenses, it was to cover either debt service or capital. Also in the fiscal year '23, the board set its priorities for the American Rescue Program, the $1.2 million for the water meter project, $500,000 for broadband, $240,000 for technology upgrades. The board identified money for fire hydrants, for AED defibrillators, and a few other programs. The other, I think, important historical note for the fiscal year '23 is that a year ago this time, you all had just finished your meetings and negotiations with the Board of Education to help them replenish their general fund reserves. The board, through its memorandum of agreement, authorized a one-time, non-recurring appropriation to transfer $828,000 from the county school capital reserve to the Board of Education to replenish and stabilize the fund balance of the school system for the same fiscal year, June 30, 2023. And again, without this narrative, it would be difficult for somebody 4 or 5 years down the road to understand the outcomes for this particular year. The second item of approval in that sequence was that the Board of Commissioners also approved then that those capital dollars that were moved to the school system were allowed to be transferred from a capital outlay line item to the current expense. And that's how you, in fact, replenish their general fund reserves. And lastly, just a couple of footnotes. I mentioned the fact that your finance officer resigned in December of '22. Your manager resigned in February '23. There is an interim manager hired in February '23 and a finance officer employed May 1st. And subsequent to this reporting period, after July 1, the county also experienced turnover in your tax administrator position. You filled that. Experienced turnover in the emergency management director. That position was filled. There was the new assistant county manager position, which had been held vacant. The board approved reclassifying that so that we could hire an IT director. And he came on board, I believe, in July or August. And then we also hired a new human resources officer who came on board in September. Again, I wish the PowerPoint would have had a few more numbers, but I think it's important to recognize that your snapshot, June 30, 2023, Gates County had an unassigned, meaning unrestricted, general fund balance of $4.2 million. That's significant. And that is a gain that has been growing over time. The report also indicates on page 13 where they talk about long-term obligations, particularly debt. I think we owe about $6.5 million or less on the Central Middle School. The county's legal debt margin is $74 million. You're nowhere near that. You haven't even hit 10% of that. So again, I think the board has continued to take a very frugal and strategic position. Page 15 in your audit is a worksheet, and the audit will be online tonight at the close of this meeting so that anyone at home or in the public can access it. Your availability for appropriation of your fund balance for the general fund is 36.5%. When you go to training and conferences, they talk about the recommendation of 8%. Well, Gates County is fiscally sound based on the work of this board in recent years to ensure that the county has that. If I can, I'd like to jump to Exhibit 6, it's page 22 in your book. This is your statement of revenues and expenditures for the general fund and the change in fund balance. You had an appropriated fund balance of just over $900,000 July 1. Through those purchases, capital outlay, and debt service payments, the appropriated fund balance was increased to $2.6 million. It was $2,656,000, which means the board gave authority to spend that $2.6 million for those designated targets. But because your sales tax was so conservatively budgeted, the county only used $588,000 of that 2.5. So again, your use of fund balance was not only strategic, your conservative budgeting on your sales tax is what really saved the day for Gates County and protected that treasury. And again, I think that needs to be elevated for understanding and discussion, because that's one of the purposes of having this audit exercise. What I'd like to do is jump back to my PowerPoint, and I don't know, am I holding this? Let's go to the next one. In front of your desk, I've got a handout for the board, and the vice chair just picked his up, and he just hit the target sheet. I asked Mr. Robertson to talk to us about cash, because when we talk about fund balance, we talk about cash. The audit tells us where we were June 30 of 2023. Well, we're now at May 15th of 2024, and the report that Mr. Robertson has compiled for us is through April 30th, and he has summarized for our benefit not only the cash in the bank, but we've got some significant receivables, because the county, through those project ordinances that were adopted in December of 22 for the high school, brand new 5 classrooms, demolition of the mobile units, I think some new air conditioning, same thing at Gatesville Elementary. Those are lottery funds that come to the county, through the county, but we put the money into the project up front and then pull it down as a reimbursement from the state of North Carolina. So we've got, get myself on track, we've got over about $1.4 million in receivables coming back. So in terms of cash and cash equivalents of April 30, 2024, you're at $15.98 million. So the board's planning, the board's execution is paying dividends and keeping the county in a strong position. And here, I'm here telling the story. This is not something that current administration, this is something that the board has guided us through. And the 2 boxes on the chart where we highlighted both the elections and the sheriff's office, those are the 2 budget amendments that the board just took corrective action to replenish those accounts where we've had greater demand than we had anticipated. The next page, again, this is a finance director report for your 2 major utilities, your landfill, GITS, landfill, and water. But I want to focus on water and sewer. I've got the numbers highlighted. The auditor spoke of improving our procedures for billing, collecting, accounting for accounts receivable. Your water and sewer revenues are at $2.78 million through April 30. Your expenditures are at $2.139 million. As of 3/4 of the fiscal year, revenues are outpacing expenditures by $647,000. I think we are turning the corner. And some of the realignment the board did with the folks that are in the billing section in finance, and we used to call that customer service, but we've got them all sort of directly keyed in under finance and the leadership of Daphne Walker and her team. We are turning the corner on that, and especially on some delinquent accounts where they've been just very, very persistent. The next handout I have for you again is Exhibit 1 from the audits, page 16, but I've highlighted cash and cash equivalents of where we were June 30 versus where we are now, or April 30, and I think we are protecting the citizens' treasury. Again, Exhibit 6, which was I should click these. Again, for the folks at home, they can hopefully see this better on their computer, but this, again, illustrates, you started out with a $900,000 appropriation of fund balance for the general fund. It was increased strategically to $2.65 million, but because of the revenue projections that were so conservative, that was offset, and you only used $588,000 of your fund balance. And again, the next page is landfill and water fund. June 30, the county had cash in the landfill account, $457,000. That may be important when there's a project coming down the road where I think all 3 counties are going to be asked to participate. I don't know that we yet have an estimate on that transfer station.
We don't have an estimate, but we have a meeting coming up in June.
So again, that I think is key, and your water fund at June 30 was $2.64 million. So I think this is good news for the board. I think this is good news for the taxpayers. And we may have to get back to the audit as we get into some of our work sessions, but this is more than just a clean audit. This is a good performance measure of the board's hard work, and I just think you all need to be aware of that. Item next, with the board's encouragement, we put out proposals for the mowing contract. We had 2 different companies bid. Both of these companies have served the county, one currently, one in the past. Each location of county property was identified, and the bidders presented unit pricing on a per occurrence basis for everything from the old courthouse to the EIC building to the soil and water building. And I want to mention that I had a lot of dialogue with both of the vendors to make sure we were comparing apples to apples. On the 2 that are up there, we had aggregated, the best example is down at the bottom, the 4 convenience center sites. The bidder on the left aggregated their unit price at $206, which is actually $51.50 per cut. Over on the right-hand side, the other bidder, LilyPad, had put $60 for that aggregated figure, and we had conversation with them to confirm that they weren't bidding $60 to do 4 cuts, which would be $15 a cut. Their intent was $60 per site, so we adjusted that in our bid tabulation to be $240, and we did the same thing on the community center. There was some lack of clarity because we're in this transition period, and right now the community center takes care of all the mowing for all the ball fields associated with the community center and is paid for out of the community center budget. So it's likely that will continue, and we had the need to seek clarity and adjustment because the LilyPad proposal had suggested a figure of $150 for the community center. And I think we quickly realized that they were probably anticipating just the front end from the road back toward where the tennis courts were. So we contacted them, asked them to give us another proposal, and we sent them the same map, the boundary map of the community, so everybody would know how much acreage and coverage they were mowing, and they came back at 350, the other one was 275. Sorry about that. Anyhow, the bid tabulation is available for the home viewing office. In the aggregate, the Brinkley bid came out at $60,086. The Lily Pad bid came out at $69,340. Based on unit pricing for every single facility. And both firms have agreed to be considered to have their pricing continued at least for 2 years without an increase. And in the case of the firm that I'll be recommending, the Brinkley at the $60,086, they've agreed to hold their price for 2 years, 24 months. In the third year, they're suggesting a 3% increase, but they want to have consideration for a fuel surcharge, that if we go more than a month with the national average fuel price for unleaded gas exceeding 4.25, and I hope to goodness we don't have that, but that was a marker that they felt was a standard in the industry. So this evening, I'd like to ask the board for approval of the bid from Brinkley for $60,086, with the understanding we'll come back with a contract. Pitt's out of town this week, but I think in terms of getting notice to the two vendors, we've had a really, I think, detailed and fair review of the proposals, good dialogue with both vendors. And again, if I go down one more, for those that might be watching at home, the area in red is the area that the community center has been traditionally using their funds, which are provided by the county, to maintain all those fields. So y'all have a lot of wheels in motion in Gates County. So I would be very grateful if the governing body would consider a recommendation to grant the bid for the Brinkley firm based on their unit pricing.
I make a motion that we go with the recommendation of the county manager.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor and a second. All of five signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no.
Thank you.
Ayes have it.
Thank you very much. Just a couple small other things that can be discussions for later. We're having regular discussions with the community center staff about their programming, about their relationship with the school system and the use of the facilities, particularly the ball fields, and also making plans to transition those positions to the county effective July 1. I'll let Commissioner Hoffler talk about the America 250 grant, but I checked that off my list.
You want me to say anything about that?
No, on million. And then the last thing I have, and it came up today, a gentleman called me from this morning and said, Mr. Sauer, I've just dropped my children off at school. I've driven through the county, went past 2 fire stations, went past the courthouse, went past the post office, came to the schoolhouse, and not one of the flags was at half staff, as directed by the governor's office to recognize the loss of life in Charlotte by those law enforcement folks. And he was asking, imploring that we come up with a mechanism where we can get the communication out in a timely and uniform manner so that our flags are appropriately honoring those that should be honored. Mr. Billy Tutwiler is going to work up that protocol, that communication system, so that he can work through the fire chiefs, through the folks all around the courthouse and the school system. And again, I'm grateful to that gentleman who made the call. That's all I got.
All right, we'll go to Commissioner updates. Mr. Truman, would you like to start us off?
Sure, we can keep it going. I mean, I gave the biggest update earlier with the opioid task force. Beyond that, I don't have much to say tonight. It's been a busy few weeks. Been keeping our chair in our prayers.
Commissioner Hoffman?
I will mention that America 250 NC has started up. The General Assembly has proposed giving counties money to help celebrate the events coming up with the it started with Halifax Resolves. They had a program a couple of weeks ago, and it would go on to the Declaration of Independence, Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Battle of Yorktown, and Ireland. They have a proposal to give counties money to help celebrate those events in our history, because it is over a multi-year period of time. The grant application was, I would describe it as very comprehensive and demanding of what they wanted, the information. The deadline was May 4th. People called, and I was one of those who called. I said, okay, small county, we cannot get all this information together in that short amount of time. So they did extend it to the 17th. I'm proud to say that we have filled out the application as of, and we mailed it on, we sent it on
Yesterday.
last Friday, Monday.
Yes, no, I think it was Monday, you're right, Monday the
Monday.
13th.
So we're, almost a week ahead. And so we'll have to wait and see if we get the money. I don't, we will just wait and see. I have a good feeling that we will, but you don't spend money until you get it. Also, coming up, we saw that this is a month by elderly abuse and a variety of things occurring. Tomorrow at the annex, we will be packing with, food packaging for gyms. I believe we start at 8:30, and we'll go until we finish packing. And then on Saturday, we have the drive-through. Well, no, we'll have that, and it starts at 8:30 to 10. So if you know people who are to participate in gyms or come, remind them that our food giveaway is Saturday morning.
Thank you, Commissioner Hoffman. Commissioner Raintree?
Yes, commission updates for Trillium Health Resources. Trillium will go live on July 1st. The areas of primary focus prior to going live are, number 1, primary care providers, 2, claims testing, 3, hospitals and other specialty operations contracting, and number 4, non-emergency medical transportation. Health Opportunities was launched today on May 15th. Trillium will work with the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services and other designated entities to help members for the services, to find services that they need. Trillium will ensure there's a diverse group of people participating. In addition, Trillium will be improving the number of agencies providing these resources. Okay, for the Albemarle Regional Health Services update. We had a presentation from our child fatality prevention team. Our team addressed policy, procedures, and practices and statistics concerning child fatalities in Northeastern North Carolina. Also, Dr. Lisa Satterwhite of Duke University and ARHS are partnering together to do regional research and data for ALS, otherwise called Lou Gehrig disease, which is a nervous system disease that weakens muscles and impacts physical function. ARHS is currently seeking opportunities in behavioral health funding. We had a successful ARHS April legislative roundtable meeting, which has garnered support for a funding formula from our state legislators. As far as update for the Gates County Department of Social Service, the Social Service Commission have announced the nomination period, which began April 29th, going through May 29th, for the Social Service Commission appointee to serve on the Gates County DSS Board. Our board member, Mrs. Bernice Johnson, she has finished her term, so now the nomination period is beginning. It begun April 29th through May 29th to replace that particular seat on the board. Notice of this newly appointed DSS board member is anticipated to be in June. I want to say congratulations to Director Willie Smith III on your nomination for the North Carolina Association of County Director of Social Services, second vice president nomination. This position would allow Director Smith to oversee NCAC DSS committees and participate in state meetings with the North Carolina Department of Human Health Services and our state legislators. DSS and Dr. D. Smith of the Friendly Dental Van are exploring partnership to provide opportunities for Medicaid recipients and the uninsured to receive dental services. So we're going to get the logistics right for that, and you'll be hearing further information concerning the partnership with the dental van. Gates County Board of Commissioners attended Ashton Lewis annual luncheon on May 1st. We discussed strategies of how we discussed strategies with Jimmy Rain and his staff on how to enhance employee safety, fire safety, facility and asset, fire protection, and water delivery infrastructure for Ashton Lewis Lumber. And finally, I'm pleased with the citizens' enthusiasm and input concerning our future community center and community track project. Suggestions ranging from sanctioned horseshoes, pits, outdoor basketball courts, tennis courts, and cornhole stations are some of the activities that will provide health and wellness for our citizens. So thank you, constituents, for that input concerning the future project of the track and the community center. And that concludes my updates.
Thank you, Commissioner Roundtree. All right, first of all, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out tonight and bearing with me as I stumble through some of the ashes. We got there.
You did.
Public Health and Safety Committee, we met last month. I want to have to postpone it this month. I'll send out an email. I've got to do some traveling for work. So, but it will go on to the next month. So it seems like we've been meeting every other month due to some conflicts. So, but other than that, thank y'all, board members, for everything you do, your county manager and your team, for everything y'all do, and look forward to seeing what July 1st holds with the budget. So, other than that, if anybody else has nothing else to say,
Would you consider a recess for Monday for an update on some more budget projects? Okay.
Chris, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. We adjourn.
This is, I get some, we pay there sometimes.
I got two more pages got stuck together.
Man, I think that you did an excellent job. Excellent.
Been a long time sitting. especially when it's, this stuff is so
Yeah. Yeah.